Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Women in Motorsports. Joe San Diego here, along with Daniele from Racers, the Girls Behind the Helmet, and Ben Schneider from Ben Schneider's channel over on YouTube. A big thank you to our Patreon subscribers, including David, our newest Patreon subscriber. You too can invest in the Grid Network by clicking the link to Patreon. Less than 5 minutes. Keep us on the air. Keep us going to the track more frequently in 2023. And Ben, speaking about being on the track 2023, one of the biggest events in the United States, made it considered to be crown jewel when it comes to midget racing, the Chili Bowl in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we saw a very significant accomplishment there from two racers.
Yeah, well, Joe, just like I was saying before we came on the air, I want to be very clear. I'm hardly a USAC midget racing expert here. I just kind of tune in every year for the Chili Bowl because it's such a big event. So I'm not going to be able to give like a super in-depth analysis of the race here or anything for you guys. But I will say, there was some history made again this year. And I mentioned this a little bit on the wrap-up show last Sunday as well. Of course, last year, Kaylee Bryson became the first female driver to make it all the way to the A-Main feature event that concludes the Chili Bowl. And this year she doubled down on that. She made it back there again, in addition to Jade Avedissian as well. And it's a great accomplishment for those two. And I want to just explain to people who might not be super familiar with the event. There's over 300 entrants. I think it's something like 360 total competitors that come to this event. 12 of them were women this year. So it's great to see some representation there. We had Carson Elledge making her return to the driver's seat. You might remember her from this event several years ago. She's the niece of Dale Earnhardt Jr., the granddaughter of Dale Earnhardt. So it's great to see her out there again. Taylor Reimer actually made it, I believe, to the B-Main. So she came very close to advancing to the final feature as well. But of those 300 some odd entries, only 24 get to compete in the A-Main. So the fact that Kaylee and Jade were able to make it there in and of itself is a victory in many respects. Now, I believe Jade started 13th. Kaylee started 20th. They both faded a little bit from their starting spots. I believe Jade ended up 18th, Kaylee 22nd. So I guess you could say the A-Main didn't necessarily go as well as they had hoped. But like I said, just getting there in and of itself takes a lot of drive and determination throughout all the prelims going up all week leading up to the final day of racing on Saturday, and then leading into Sunday morning. Like I mentioned, I think this event is great in many respects. It's very prestigious. A lot of people pay attention to it, but the scheduling was not great this year. I think it was 12:50 a.m. and I was texting some of my friends that, they're still wrapping up driver intros, like the A-Main hasn't even started yet. So, there's certainly some things to work out there. And then I would say the prize fund as well. We heard Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell talking about this. I think part of the reason that they didn't participate this year is that they felt like for how much the event gets hyped up and how much attention it gets, how prestigious it is, 10 grand to the winner simply is not enough, especially when you consider, some of these iRacing events are offering 40 grand, 50 grand to some of their winners. So there definitely needs to be some improvements in how the event is run in terms of scheduling and how much it's giving back to its competitors and to its winners. But all in all, still a great event and great accomplishments for both Kaylee Bryson and Jade Avedissian. And I know they both have very bright futures ahead of them as well.
And amazing, as you mentioned, over 300 racers. And you mentioned about the prelims. For viewers not familiar, this isn't just like we're talking about prelims and like the fastest group gets in. We're talking about if you're, for example, the P feature, you try to get to the next feature will be the O all the way up to the A. When it comes to racing, is there anything like this that you could compare it to, or just the fact that for somebody to make it to the top 24 and 300, is this just something where you feel like this could be a good indicator for Kaylee and Jade that throughout 2023, these are two racers to watch?
Well, for sure. And again, like I said, I'm not super familiar with the world of USAC midget racing, so I won't pretend to be an expert there or anything. But I believe, it's based on your results all throughout the week. There's prelims. It's a week-long event there, and that determines where you end up starting all the way from the P-Main, like you said, Joe, all the way through to the A-Main on the last day. And I believe it was Charlie Crawl, the ARCA PR director, who tweeted something, and he said, what inspires me is that, there's somebody out there starting on the very last row of the P-Main, and probably doesn't have a path forward to make it very far to continue to advance. But he's going to go out there and he's going to try his best, and so are every single other one of those competitors of a Chili Bowl. And that's great to see as well. But yeah, I mean, like you said, Joe, with that many competitors, just to make it to the A main is a grand accomplishment. And like I said, I think they both have very bright futures. I know Kaylee's got a lot planned this year. There are already some rumors that her schedule that she's got is going to be lined up to maybe allow her to pursue some NASCAR or INDYCAR or ARCA opportunities. So we'll see if anything comes of that. But I believe she's fully funded for this year. That was one of the things that I think I was saying on the show a couple of weeks ago, is that they have her to the point where she doesn't really have to worry about that this year. She can just focus on trying to go out and develop her skill set and become a better driver and get that ready for her future. So I think she's got a very bright future ahead for herself.
And what a great proving ground over at USAC, the United States Auto Club. The midget program have worked their way up ARCA, get into the vendors, the stock vehicles like the stock cars, truck series, worked their way up that ladder. And then just the possibility, I think a lot of folks, especially internationally, are not aware. A lot of times we do see drivers from midgets go to dirt. They find a path to IndyCar. We've seen that quite a bit as well. So open wheel route, while some people might be surprised, totally we've seen that occur here in the United States, and definitely we're going to be following both races throughout 2023. Another big event, Daniel, 24 Hours of Dubai this past race weekend, where we had Jasmine Priesting up there. We always know she's one of the contenders here, but she also had Stephanie Cox as well in that race weekend over on 24 Hours of Dubai. What were some of the big things that stood out to you?
Yeah, the 24 Hours of Dubai is really one of the big events that open the endurance and GT scene of every year, the calendar year. It's pretty much every big teams and drivers that are set to compete in endurance racing are often going to Dubai for this big race. It was a big race again after for a couple of years. There hasn't been so much big grids. Now they were kind of back for every category. It was a decent amount of entries. And among them, we had, as you mentioned, two female drivers. One is Jasmine Preissig. She's a very competitive driver in TCR, very experienced as well. She's been a class champion already in the Creventic 24-hour series. She's racing for Wolf Power Racing, which was a very competitive team in TCR when they were racing with the Volkswagen Golf TCR cars. They switched to last year to the Audi RS3 TCR, and they were not that at the same level that they were used to. They were still there battling for the podiums, but they have also some more reliability issues that they used to have. And this is pretty much also what happened in Dubai, because for the first part of the race, for the first 12 hours, let's say, they were starting from pole position. So Jasmine and her teammates claimed the TCR pole position. So that was showing their pace, their true pace. They were kind of battling around the top three for the podium. They were in second place for most of the race, and then at the 12-hour mark, really during the night, they had the first major issue. They had a gearbox issue. They had to the car had to be wheeled back to the pit lane, towed back to the pit lane. Had quite a long pit stop, and they kind of tried to fix, and they ended up replacing the whole gearbox. So they lost a lot of laps. And the whole second part of the race really was one trouble to the next. The car was back out on track. Then something else happened. They at one point also they were hit by another class, by a Porsche from another class. So it was kind of a troubled second part of the race, but still they settled in fourth place in class because a lot of other cars also had some issues at one point and lost some time. So they were still in contention for a podium for fourth place. Towards the end of the race, the third place TCR car also retired, so they kind of had the chance to move up into third. And Jasmine again had the opportunity to climb on the podium in TCR, which was again another decent result after all the troubles that they had to overcome. But that's also part of the endurance spirit, especially in such long races. The other driver that you mentioned is Stefan Cox. She's from the Netherlands, and she's also quite popular because she's also the commentator for Formula One in the Netherlands. So she is also quite popular, and also the daughter of a former DTM driver. And she was also racing together with her dad and another couple of drivers, and among them also Tom Boonen, the famous cyclist, winner of some stages in the Tour de France, that he is now attempting another adventure in another sport. Stefan Cox really was racing another class, of course. She was racing in the GT3 AM class, and they were quite fast in practice. They were around the top 10 in class, and then during the fourth lap, so really at the very beginning of the race, also they had a gearbox issue. They had like a 6-hour stop, so it was really hard for them to climb back. They had a very strong second part of the race. From after they fixed the problem, they had a really flawless race after that. So they really climbed the order step after step as the other hit trouble, and they ended up in the top 20 in GT3. And interestingly, second in GT3 AM, because really there was a lot of trouble for all the other competitors, and they managed to finish second in GT3 AM. So really, it's a testament in how in these races it's really important to keep going even after such big problems. Fix the car, get back on track, and something else will happen. So both of them, despite troubled races, finished in the class podium. And now, after just 1 week after the 24-hour of Dubai, the 24-hour series by Creventic is back on track, because right now we are in the final hour of the 6-hour of Abu Dhabi, which is the second race of the year and the final race of the Middle Eastern Trophy, which also included the 12-hour of Kuwait, which was the final race of the previous season. So kind of it's kind of a messy calendar, but the final race of last year was also the first part of the Middle Eastern Trophy, which finishes now in Abu Dhabi. We have 3 female drivers on the grid now. Jasmine Pricey, who is back in TCR, and then we have Alaya Kolok, who is racing in GT4. And interestingly, she's just back from off-road racing, because she was part of the biggest off-road race of the year, the Dakar, and she's back on asphalt. So she's kind of also an interesting driver that races in all kind of cars and situations. She's racing in GT4, and also Laura Kreihammer. She's in the GTX class. She is quite an established GT driver. She's racing GT4 Germany, in GT2 European Championship. She was also a previous race winner in the 24-hour series racing, and also a KTM factory driver, and also the PR from KTM. So she's currently leading the GTX race, and while Jasmine Pricing is currently second in class. She's in the car and she will go to the end. And Alaya Kolok is currently second in GT4. So hopefully, if nothing else happens during the final 45 minutes, we might have a triple podium for female drivers in the 24-hour series 6-hour of Abu Dhabi.
And of course, for our full race report, Daniel's website, racersbehindthehelmet.com, will have that report there post race essentially, and of course all week long for you to access on the website. Now, last weekend we talked about a couple of races, but we also had some testing in Daytona. Of course, Daytona International Speedway, very much well known for the home of stock car racing. And of course, in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to be having a bunch of sports cars there. But then we had ARCA Menards series there for some testing. We had an interesting 2 fastest. Can you tell us about the 2 fastest from the ARCA Menards testing?
Sure, Joe. Well, we had, like you said, testing at Daytona over the last week, and Venturini Motorsports performed very well. Of course, Tony Breidinger and Amber Balkan will be competing at Daytona for that team a little bit later on here in just a couple of weeks. But they led the timing charts, and Daniel actually wrote a whole write-up on, I think, 7 female drivers in total that were at the test, so you can go check that out on his website for more on each of them individually. But Tony and Amber in particular showed a lot of speed. Now, there is a caveat there. You see the 2 of them at the top of the timing charts. All 4 Venturini cars were up there, like I said. So it was an organized draft run. And of course, you always go faster in the draft. But still, obviously, Venturini know how to bring speed to Daytona. And that certainly bodes well for both Tony and Amber as they get ready for the race coming up here to kick off the ARCA season. Of course, they'll both be running partial schedules with Venturini here in 2023. And I'm excited to see what they can do. Like I said, Venturini always brings a strong group of cars to the ARCA Menard Series all year, but particularly on the super speedways, their cars have a lot of speed. So it's going to be interesting to see how they can do.
And one thing I know, especially for fans not familiar, when it comes to, as you mentioned, draft and in the pack, when it comes to then the single car runs, is that something where, especially with qualifying, where they are going to be starting maybe away from their teammate, this is something where they could get practice used to it, and then if they find their teammate works out to their advantage, is that an indicator of why they were probably practicing more together as a group?
So I'm not sure what you're asking. Are you talking about in qualify trying to position yourselves to qualify close to each other so that you can work together during the race? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yes. Sorry about that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, with qualifying, I'm sure they'd all love to be starting relatively close to each other, and if their cars are set up the same way, the super speedway, you're ideally able to hold it wide open going all the way around the track, assuming your car's handling well enough. So, yeah, I would say that based on the indication that I've seen, the speed that those cars showed in testing here, I think Venturini has a very good chance to take the pole with one of their drivers and have all of them starting up towards the front, and then try to position themselves to work together all throughout the race, which we kind of saw them do the last couple of years at Daytona anyway. So I think that's certainly got to be part of their game plan. Of course, super speedway racing can sometimes throw a wrench into your plans, and we all know that all too well. But I'm sure that's got to be at the front of their minds based on how testing went, because like I said, they topped the time charts and it wasn't particularly close. All 4 of them showed tremendous speed.
Yeah, all 4, as you mentioned, showing tremendous speed. Even if you have a driver that might be 7th or 8th, they can still try to stay in that draft in case they get single file, get those Venturini cars onto one lane to catch up. Definitely, I think it's going to be really exciting. And one driver a lot of people are excited about, Isabella. Of course, as you mentioned, Venturini. They're with Toyota. Isabella, a Toyota racing development driver. What big news is she looking at for 2023?
Yeah, well, Isabella Robusto was just in the news this week as well. She's, I think, planning to compete in 5 total series here. I'm just pulling up the press release again. She'll be in the Cars Tour, PLM, Pirelli, GTA America Series, GR Cup Series, and ARCA through the Eastern National Series. She'll be getting a limited run with Venturini as well. Of course, she's another Toyota development driver, and Venturini certainly, like I said, they always do their best to give these young women opportunities in the ARCA Menard Series and in that platform. Even if it's not for a full season, it's a great opportunity. I believe Isabella's only 18 years old, so she certainly has a lot of time to continue to hone her skills and develop as a young talent as well. So great to see her get this opportunity. She's had some success in the late model scene. I know she was doing a lot of that kind of racing in 2022, and obviously has some more plans for that this year, in addition to just starting to get these first opportunities in the ARCA Menard Series. So we'll see what she can do. She's certainly going to have a good car underneath her with Venturini.
Yeah, great car with Venturini. Toyota, definitely they're going to be looking to put in more to get her up and up into better seats in higher series. It's going to be really exciting 2023 for her. And down, there was another young American driver this past weekend, Chloe Chambers. She had a really pretty solid weekend considering most fans probably remember her in the W Series, overshadowed by her teammate, but she held her own this past weekend.
Oh, she really did. She had a really strong weekend at the first round of the Formula Regional Oceania Championship. This series, as I mentioned in the episode last week, was previously known as the Toyota Racing Series, which was quite a big deal for drivers, for European drivers that were looking for opportunities during the winter, during their off season, to get some good super license points. Unfortunately, the series kind of went on hold during the COVID pandemic because of the really strict restrictions for New Zealand. So it was basically 2 years that the series didn't run at all. They are back now on track in 2023 with a pretty good grid, I would say. Not as crowded as previously, but quite a decent amount of very good drivers, also from Europe and from the USA, and also some local talents. So it's quite an interesting championship to follow. And last weekend they had the first round at Highlands Motorsport Park, which is kind of a quite interesting and very technical track. And we had 2 female drivers on the grid. Chloe Chambers, as you mentioned, the 18-year-old American who raced in W Series. Last year it was her second year in single seaters because she had previously competed in the Formula 4 US Championship. She did quite well in Formula 4 and then moved up to Formula Regional cars. And interestingly, the Formula Regional cars that she drove in W Series, in at least 2 rounds in Barcelona and in Singapore, are the very same cars that are racing in New Zealand right now in the now called Formula Regional Oceania Championship. And she did extremely well because she was around the top 10 all weekend in practice and qualifying. She qualified for both of races in P10. And then moved up in all 3 races, because in race 1 she was P8, P7 in race 2. So again, making more progress. She also always had very strong starts, which is quite a big deal because it's difficult to get good starts in those cars. And then the feature race in race 3, she really had a very, very good race, good overtaking also. In fact, she was nominated for one of the 3 best overtaking of the weekend. And she was in top 5 in the feature race. She finished at P5. At one point, she was also P4. She was battling around P4. Unfortunately, couldn't get it home. But P5 was a really, really strong result for the opening weekend in what was called the Toyota Racing Series. Now, the Formula Regional Oceania, which is now back on track this weekend. They had already the first race of the second round for what was our last night. She was P10, qualified P10 and finished in P10. They were in Teretonga, a new track, very fast. So not a lot of overtaking opportunities. So how pretty much all the grid, how they started, they finished. The race was won by Charlie Wurz, the son of the former Formula 1 driver and Le Mans winner Alexander Wurz. So that just to say that the level of the grid is pretty high. So the very good start of the season for Chloe Chambers. We don't know yet what she will do during the season, what is the summer season here. But at least she's having some great track time and with good results. The second female driver on the grid was Brianna Morris. She is a New Zealander driver, very young, and also she's the Formula Ford champion in 2022 in New Zealand. But of course, the step from Formula Ford to the Formula 3 regional tattoos car is quite big. So of course we will have to to see her adapting a little bit. Also, she was saying that the cars are a lot demanding physically. She comes from a car that is not so heavily reliant on aerodynamics. So she will have to adapt to the car for a couple of weekends. But also she had a P11 in the opening round. So also she's making some good progress, and mainly she's focusing on improving session after session. So it's going to be interesting to follow also in the coming weekends. The series will have 5 events, all back to back. So Also, that is easier logistically for drivers that are coming from overseas. And we will report from it in the coming episodes. But also last weekend, as we previously talked about, the 24-hour of Dubai. Also in Dubai, we had the first round of the Formula 4 UAE Championship. Actually, they had the first round in Abu Dhabi as a support series of the Formula 1 championship in Abu Dhabi in 2022, but that was a non-championship round, so non-points paying round. The really first round was in Dubai last weekend, and we have 5 female drivers there. We have Hamda Al-Kbaizi in the Yas Heat Academy team. We have also Victoria Blokina and Lena Buller, also teammates in Race to Race team. That is a new team from the Emirates at their first races in single seater. So also that has to be taken into account. We have Bianca Bustamante, another driver coming from WC, that's coming racing for Prema, which is really the top team in Formula 4 racing. And Emily De Geus, and she was also in W Series, and she's racing for MP Racing. They are all trying to get some good seat time before the start of their next challenge. And they had quite. Some of them had quite a challenging rounds, but for most of them, it was just getting back into the rhythm. For most of them, also, it was the first time in the new Tatus Formula 4 car. Because, for example, for Lena Buller and for Emily De Geus, they both had raced in the Spanish Formula 4 Championship, but with the previous car, with the previous generation of cars. And the same goes also for Hamza Al-Kbaizi, who did 3 seasons, well, two and a half in the Italian Championship, but with the previous car. And Hamza Al-Kbaizi actually had a really strong first weekend, because she was in the top 40 cars to start with, all very, very competitive grid, and she was in the top 10 in both of the qualifying. She was P8 and P9 in both the qualifying sessions. Unfortunately, she lost a couple of positions in all 3 races, but she has a P12 as the best result of the weekend. As I say, out of 40 cars, the best drivers in Formula 4 all around the world, in all the championship, the Spanish, in the Italian and the German championship, the French championship, they were all there. So really, for Hamza to be consistently in the top 10 on pace, it was a good start of her campaign. And also, they're not racing this weekend, but they will race in Q8 in a couple of weekends' time. And so we will really have a look at their performances in the coming week.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting to see in the coming weeks the progress of all the racing series as they're coming up for 2023. And of course, we encourage everyone to visit the website Racers Behind the Helmet, get the full calendar of all the upcoming races, as you can see, with the 6 cars hours, and then January 21st. 22nd race weekend. Again, Brianna Morris, Chloe Chambers, got Courtney Crone over in IMSA. And of course, be sure to visit the website, all the stories that they have, recapping everything going on, including stories we don't discuss about here just due to a lack of time. But there's a lot going on with all the women in motorsports. And once again, that website is racersbehindthehelmet.com. Overall, it's been a fun show, and we want to thank everyone for tuning in to today's program, and especially our Patreon subscribers for investing in us right here at the Grid Network, especially with David, the newest member of our Patreon team, invested in us, getting us on the air, helping us pay the bills. You too can invest in the Grid Network as well. Just click on that link through Patreon or buy me a coffee. You could do a one-time contribution. You set the amount, and you could even buy a cup of coffee for a particular on-air personality. They'll thank you on the air. And visit our website, gridranking.com, for all the latest information, including our social media page, especially on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. And we also live stream on both of those, including on LinkedIn, where we post information on opportunities on our LinkedIn page. A big thank you to Ben Schneider and Daniel Zeri for making the show work today, Saturday morning. We encourage everyone visit the website Racers Behind the Helmet, grid rank it, and follow both on Twitter, Instagram, and social media. Enjoy the races, everyone. We'll see you next time for Grid Life Wrap-Up World Rally Championship going on underway in Monte Carlo. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. Help us get to 500 subscribers before the Daytona 500. 2023 is going to be a really fun season. We want you to be part of it. All our live programs, plus special programs such as Roundtable and Life on the Grid. Click on the links to see some of our great videos right here on the Grid Network.